A very good afternoon and a warm welcome to UBC Lunchtime News on this 21st day of February 2024. I'm Loreen Masika Kazimoto. Now we start off this news bulletin with President Museveni has met a group of leaders from Teso sub-region at State House Entebbe. The group was led by Mr. Calvin Echodu, the National Resistance Movement flag bearer for Soroti West constituency. The engagement was a follow-up meeting between the president and the leaders. The first meeting was held on the 22nd of December 2023 at State House Entebbe. In that meeting, President Museveni tasked the leaders to brief him on how much income each household earns in Teso, on the average land holding in the sub-region, on what enterprise can be done on the available land, and how the government can help the area locals. The president was pleased with the report because it thoroughly analyzed the questions he had asked the team in December. He also promised to make a few adjustments in the report and offer further guidance. On the other hand, President Museveni was happy to note that the team realized that the people of Teso need to go into dairy farming through crossbreeding their local cows with the Jersey cattle, since the Frisian cows cannot stand the weather in the sub-region. President Museveni was also happy with the report, finding that fruits used in Teju Fruit Factory are the right ones, suppressing previous allegations that the fruits supplied to the factory were being imported. The Secretary of the Presidential Medal Awards Committee, Hajat Zamina Malole, has urged leaders in Chibale and Kakumiro districts to carefully scrutinize medal recipients. She emphasized this during a sensitization workshop for RDCs, LC5 chairpersons and opinion leaders, highlighting the necessity for the heightened awareness and understanding of the awards among leaders and community members. Malole stressed that the medals are meant for individuals whose contributions have significantly advanced Uganda's development. We have more.
The awards are open to anyone whose impact on the nation's development is significant and measurable, stated Malore, urging leaders to collaborate with grassroots nominators to identify worthy candidates.
People who were proposed, but some of them could not qualify, and some of them were submitted late. So when we come to the district, we try to first of all iron out some of those issues and where we can improve, to see that we have a transparent process, improve on the way people submit, because sometimes
the workshop detailed various categories of medals, including those for Kagera, Luwero, Kabalega and Lukaya, typically presented during national events like Liberation Day, Heroes Day and Tarehe Sita. Chibale's resident district commissioner Godwin Angalia Kasigwa and Kakumiro's RDC Major retired David Matovu expressed gratitude for the initiative, encouraging community members to value the recognition offered by presidential medals.
Is open to all Ugandans. The issue is, do you qualify? Under which category? Are you a soldier? Health sector, those doctors who fought Ebola, who fought COVID, are you from the agricultural side? So it is open for all, but there are categories, and then the vetting process, there are forms, people should talk about you, so that now in case you are recognized, either from the security, from our war history, your contribution is really significant and the people appreciate and say.
It is now the mantle on us as the head of security, the RDC, to sensitize the 190 on the ground so that they can, because we have people who have never picked their medals in Chibale here. So we have now received some names and we are going to start meeting them so that they can.
Amid these developments, 92-year-old Muzei Peter Rugabwa from Kagadi district voiced his disappointment over being overlooked for the awards despite enduring torture and loss under the accusation of harboring President Yoweri Museveni during the tenure of late Dr. Milton Obote.
na polisi yeishaga hano kuchekinga ngokuba tugire ngo Museveni arara hano.
I was severely injured, tortured and blinded by soldiers who accused me of hiding President Museveni in my house, a man I had never met. My wife was killed, my property destroyed, and I spent 2 years in Hoima government prison. I wish for President Museveni to acknowledge my sacrifices on Heroes Day.
As the nation prepares to celebrate its heroes, the stories of those like Mzee Peter Rugabwa remind us of the personal costs endured by many in the name of freedom and development.
Now, there is a measles outbreak in Hoima district. Now, results released by the government laboratory indicate that out of 5 samples tested, 4 have tested positive for measles. 5 serum specimens were collected from individuals suspected of measles infection on the 16th of February 2024 at Runga landing site at Kijanja sub-county, Hoima district. All specimens were transported to the government laboratory in Entebbe on Tuesday and underwent both measles and rubella specific tests. We have more.
Hoima district is having an outbreak of measles in Kiganja sub-county, Lunga village. We realized the problem last week, so we had to take samples, 5 of them, and we sent them to the laboratories in Entebbe, and we have received results that 4 of the samples are positive. All the 4 are female and 1 male is negative. So we need to be on the alert. We are planning to carry out interventions. One of them is that we are going to intensify health education that side, and also we shall conduct specific immunization for all children below 5 years in all those villages near Lunga. So meeting at around 9 o'clock, and we are planning to start vaccination. But at the moment we have our teams down in the community trying to give supportive treatment, trying to line list, and also giving them education so that the community is aware of what is going on. Unfortunately, that is a hard to treat place, Lunga is at the lake shores, and movement in and out of Congo is inevitable because the index case came from Congo, came with measles, seeking treatment in Uganda.
In effort to combat the alarming rate of road accidents in Uganda, the renowned road safety advocate Joe Walker, along with his dedicated team, is set to embark on a 300-kilometer journey from Kampala to Fort Portal in western Uganda. The road safety walk, scheduled to commence in the morning of 26 February 2024, aimed to raise awareness and advocate for responsible driving practices. Supported by corporate heavyweights such as Coca-Cola, Jubilee Insurance and Nation Media Group, the initiative goes beyond a mere walk. It represents a powerful call to action to address the root causes of road accidents, notably reckless driving and driving under the influence of drugs and alcohol, which, according to police reports, contributes to a staggering 75% of road mishaps.
Right. 3, 2, 1. Yeah. But most importantly, it's a journey that highlights what happens on our roads. Away from the many kilometers that we trek, it's a journey that looks at what are we going through as a nation. If I may just bore you a bit with the statistics. In 2001, we lost 4,159 people to road crashes. In 2022, there was a 9% increase to 4,534 people. That's according to the police report. And there's a report that came from Ministry of Health, which indicated that we had lost 4,273 to malaria. Why is that important? Road crashes that's in 2022, road crashes have overtaken malaria as a killer of people in Uganda. The majority of people who are killed in Uganda are between 15 and 29. That's when people are most productive. That's the most productive age in Uganda, and road crashes continue to be the #1 killer of the youth worldwide.
We believe that safety starts with every one of us. All of us at this point in time. Almost most of us in the urban city have a mobile device, that has connectivity, and you have a footprint of social media. So we would like to come on board as Coca-Cola Beverages Uganda to provide hydration for the walk. We've been partners since the start, and we're very proud of that. But we want to create even more awareness on this.
Last year alone, we paid over 10 billion Uganda shillings in claims arising out of motor accidents. And out of those, we paid around 3.5 billion just on claims on property damage. The vehicle rams into a house or something like that, and also third-party deaths. So that's a lot of money, and we really aim to support it. But like I said, the insurance financial support is not really that. It's not enough to bring back most of these things. It is the awareness that we need.
UBC Lunchtime News. Now, the Ministry of Health, in collaboration with Kasese District Local Government, has organized a 3-day emergency vaccination exercise against measles in Nyamwamba Division of Kasese Municipality. This initiative follows the confirmation of 3 measles cases out of 36 samples recently tested at the Central Public Health Laboratory in Kampala.
Family, all the children under 5 years. Having identified these children, they were put on treatment at the Kasese Municipal Council Health Center 3 and discharged. But on discharge, these children the family decided to run away to another sub-county called Kichwamba sub-county. And these cases are now in a village called Kanyas. They found them progressing well and recovering. But on a sad note, the parents are becoming so stubborn. They don't want our village health teams to follow up, and they are claiming their children have never got sick. They are trying to deny the situation in which their children are. They are telling us their children are just weak, yet they were confirmed with measles. But otherwise, we have strengthened our surveillance systems in the district.
Take their children for vaccination, only that. Because now we are extending the years up to 15 and below. So it should be an unforgivable mistake when you, a parent, don't take the child for vaccination. And even the school owners or school head teachers should make sure that their children, the learners, are vaccinated.
Vaccination campaign in the entire district, but because of short of funds, we are starting mainly in Nyamwamba, which is one of the divisions which is most affected. Those 3 cases actually came within the Nyamwamba division. Putting our efforts as a start in Nyamwamba, but we hope we shall spread the vaccination in the entire neighboring sub-counties, because you cannot prevent people from movements.
So as a kingdom, we're encouraging wherever people are to take our children for immunization. And I've just heard that even whether to take immunized from 9 months to 5 years. But now it is now from 5 years to 15.
Humboldt University has awarded Keddy Stephen, a prominent humanitarian advocate, an honorary doctorate for his exceptional efforts in Uganda. Dr. Vivian Hench, leading African studies at the university, highlighted Keddy's advocacy for education, clean water and community upliftment as groundbreaking. This marks the first such honor of Humboldt's Uganda branch, celebrating significant humanitarian contributions. We have more in this report.
Congratulations. Congratulations upon this milestone. Doc, for the excellent work that you do. Now you will speak and we will listen, sir.
The honorary doctorate of Humboldt University is only awarded to those who have contributed profoundly to the progress of humanitarian in societies and social empowerment. Dr. Kedi's acceptance of the PhD is especially so meaningful, as this is the first honorary this is the first honorary doctorate PhD to be awarded to Uganda, to a Ugandan, ever since the university was opened.
As government to help our people, right? But now when a person comes up and say, I'm helping your people to get out of poverty, I'm happy that I'm in the line of poverty alleviation. The things I handle when the president says, go and help these people in this area, that's exactly where I fall. I'm so much humbled for your service to the people on the ground. And I can trust you that I'm going to inform the president. I'll make a brief from this function, what I have seen. Because, you see, we don't just come here to talk. We come here to add something on what you are doing. Which value am I adding on you now that you have invited me on your function? One thing we should do for him is at least for him to be appreciated by government.
Mindset is what lags people behind, because people think that only help comes from abroad. Secondly, people think that it's only the government to help. The best gift you can ever give to your government is also to help government and change a citizen. That's the only gift. There's nothing you can give a government. It's like you, there's nothing you can give to God. But the only way to reward God is to help somebody who is in need. So for us, or me, that's the mindset I said. I said I will support God, I will help God, and I will help government.
The 2024 Senior 4 candidates have been encouraged to excel and set the standard as the trailblazers sitting for the UCE examinations under the new lower secondary curriculum. This call was emphasized during a Thanksgiving Mass at Our Lady of Africa School in Mukono.
With the old lower secondary school curriculum finally closed, this year's Senior 4 candidates are set to be the very first group of candidates sitting for the new competence-based curriculum examinations. While speaking to some of the candidates set to sit for the new curriculum exams late this year, they were enthusiastic and pledged to make their parents proud.
There was a lot of struggle, but at least we came out victorious at the end. To the head teacher, thank you so much for the undying dedication to this great institution and the students. Teachers, for the immense support and guidance they have given us to make us better people of tomorrow so that we can raise this great country.
Pioneer of the new curriculum, we are proudly waiting in order to see that we can reach our dreams by carrying out serious revisions, going for seminars, going for study trips with our teachers. And our teachers have also engaged in encouraging us, carrying out guidance and counseling sessions so that they may be able to encourage us and make us more proud and strong. And as a pioneer of the new curriculum, I am really ready to work hard and see that I pursue my dreams.
The school leadership pledged to financially support their 2023's Senior 4 best candidates as they advance to the upper level of high school.
Allow me to report to you that 4 students out of those very many first grades had single digits. And we had made a promise to them earlier that whoever gets a single digit will get a gift from us. And I want to say I'm very prepared with my gift.
Dear class flag bearers of 2024, that is UCE and USCE, Senior 5 and Senior 6, 2024. For Senior 4, you are opening a new chapter of the new curriculum. Read hard. Read hard so that you make us proud. For Senior 6, the head teacher is there for you. He is ready and willing.
To celebrate the results of the Achievers class, those were the senior phase of last year, 2023. We thank God for the performance. We have had this class for over 5 years, from 2019. In between we had COVID coming in, but we never set back. Thank God our parents who have stood with us for this long time, our dear teachers, our dear instructors, and lastly the achievers themselves. We shall always thank God and we shall always give glory to God.
In the recently concluded UCE examinations, the school managed to pass 145 students in the first grade and 85 with second grade. Mariana Wari, UBC.
UBC Lunchtime News takes a very short break, but we return with more stories after these messages.
Fred!
Osmosis.
Freddy! Fred Dollar, my boss, CEO Inojo, the general of generals, the conqueror of conquerors, the first and the final, the sky above the skies, the promised land, the terms and the conditions, the international king crocodile, the source of the
Osmosis.
the Nile.
I don't have money today.
Just take a polite loan of 200k to stock my shop. The signs and symptoms of success. The bank commander, not the bank teller.
Why hassle for a loan when you've got MTN Momo? We're sorting. Use the Momo app or dial *165*5# for all quick loans. Choose from the different loan options from our partners and get one that works for you. Together, we're unstoppable.
As Uganda and as UBTS, we are hosting a high-level scientific blood transplant congress from the 4th to the 7th of March at Peak Resort, Munyonyo. I call upon everybody to come and attend this important congress where we shall share knowledge, expertise, and new innovations in the field of blood.
My name is Colonel Edith Nakarima Asuzwa. I head the State House Investors Protection Unit established by His Excellency Retired General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the President of the Republic of Uganda and the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. The Uganda Electronic Investors Protection Portal is a digital platform that empowers investors to get authentic information, make inquiries, report, verify, and receive feedback. The Electronic Investors Protection Portal serves all existing and prospective investors, both domestic and foreign, as well as the general public, through enabling whistleblowers to report any concerns about investing in Uganda. The electronic portal guides investors with important and necessary information on investing in Uganda. It also offers a quick reporting and enforcement mechanism while ensuring real-time feedback. The Uganda Electronic Investors Protection Portal gives you access to authentic information,
and resources that are designed to help you make informed investment decisions and avoid common pitfalls.
To access the portal, log on to protection.statehouseinvest.go.ug or visit our website www.statehouseinvest.go.ug. Email us on info@statehouseinvest.go.ug or call us on 0326 100630. Visit our office at Lumumba Avenue, Plot 51B, Nakasero Hill, Kampala, Uganda. The State House Investors Protection Unit, empowering investors.
Ebiseera by'okuzaayo abaana mu masomero tebiteekwa kukaluubiriza n'akatono. Eno kusimba nnyiriri mpanvu kano kalipagano ka bidduka. Simanya kuzunga na banka siripsi. Kati osobola okusasula school fees z'omwana wo ate n'okola n'ebirala ntoko ku ssimu ye ey'omu ngalo. Ekikola kyangu nnyo. Nyiga bunyezi *165*8 ogoberera ebikulagiriddwa oba okozese app ya MTN Momo. Ate kati okola ki olwaleero? MTN Mobile Money Uganda Limited erungamizibwa banka enkulu ya Uganda.
Nyati Motion Pictures brings you Tuko Pamoja, Busoga segment. Learn about how Busoga emerged from being a pawn of Buganda and Bunyoro to a mainstream kingdom in Uganda.
Defeated princes and defeated generals used the Busoga to reinvent themselves.
The Baisengovi were from Bunyoro.
So Namutukura also came as a prince.
He crossed River Nile with 11 clans from Bunyoro.
This area where we are was controlled by people who ran away from Buganda.
We people who live across the Nile, we are so related from our myth or from just the Nile.
We are similar people.
We are one. Use that word, pamoja.
We all bleed red.
Premiering Wednesday, 21st February 2024 at 5 to 9:30 p.m. at the National Theatre. To get a ticket, call 0778 787 660. Tuko Pamoja?
Welcome back from that break. We're glad that you're still with us here in UBC Lunchtime News. Now, in more news this afternoon, the government has presented bills aimed at streamlining various agencies to cut down on wasteful expenditure. This move comes as part of a broader reassessment of the resource envelope and expenditure for the 2024-2025 financial year, which has been adjusted from 52.723 trillion to 53.336 trillion. Henry Musasizi, the Minister of State for Finance, attributes this increase to interventions such as meeting statutory obligations like UGIFT, pension and gratuity funds.
Government has advanced the move to save about 1 trillion annually through reducing on the wasteful expenditure from duplication of government agencies. Parliament is debating the bill after respective ministries tabled different bills justifying the need to rationalize the attached agencies.
The bill contains repeal of the Uganda National Roads Authority Act 2006,
is the repeal of the Non-Performing Assets Recovery Trust Act, CAP 95, the amendment of Assets of Departed Asians Act.
Most of these agencies were a formation of acts of parliament, and thus the need to revisit the guided laws were inevitable.
You intimated that it would be very appropriate, Right Honourable Speaker, for the sponsors of rationalization, namely the Ministry of Public Service, to interact intimately and intensively with the leaders of the committees.
One of the basic tenets of a good law, it must be consultative, and this is part of the consultations I beg to submit.
And when you're going for that meeting, Honourable Minister, kindly go with the report that formed your decision to rationalization, so that these members will be able to appreciate and understand what it is for them to take to their committees.
It is now upon the investigations of Parliament to determine whether the move tallies with the government idea to cut costs and improve efficiency, as well as be friendly to the taxpayer.
They want to understand the nature of bill that was laid. May you indulge the government chief whip to guide the ministers, because each of the bills carries a memorandum. So the memoranda cannot be omnibus.
President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni is among the crusaders of rationalization after the president recently called for more support for wealth creators through engaging in the 4 sectors of the economy, including commercial agriculture, industries, services and ICT. However, the tabling of the respective bills comes at a time when the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development has revised the resource envelope and expenditure for the financial year 2024-2025 from 52.723 trillion to 53.336 trillion. This, according to Minister of State for Finance in charge of General Duties, Henry Musasizi, is attributed to the consideration of statutory obligations, including pension, gratuity and funds for the Uganda Intergovernmental Fiscal Transfer UGFIT program.
So this is not something extraordinary. You can see it is something consistent with the process we shall arrive at by May.
The upward shift in the resource envelope is not a surprise to a section of members of parliament who claim that the government is playing a hide-and-seek game to include some uncalled expenditure.
You have now processed a budget of 52 trillion by today. They are now adding another 1.3 trillion, which means that you are going to pass a budget when 1.3 trillion has not been properly scrutinized. That's why the law says you must disclose when you are presenting the budget framework paper. But two, you are dealing with people who are dishonest. Sometimes they keep money for items they know that Parliament will reject.
In this financial year, for example, there was about 2 trillion shillings that could not be explained. And that pointed to us that the intention was then to later revise the budget to 54 trillion shillings and claim that the 2 trillion shillings has been found after Parliament has made its recommendation. Given that our country can only mobilize about 30 trillion shillings domestically at the very high end, otherwise we do about 28 trillion, and we mobilize about 5 to 6 trillion externally.
They will also be accommodated. This is normal in the process of budget preparation and budget approval. So I cannot say at this stage that we shall carry this resource envelope up to the end.
Daniel Mugoya, Gloria Gutabinji, UBC News.
The 37th African Union Heads of State and Governments Assembly has successfully concluded, marking a crucial moment for decisions aimed at fostering peace and security across the continent. This call gains prominence against the backdrop of increasing demands for constitutional order in nations that have recently undergone military coups.
A permanent seat on the UN Security Council and ensuring the reform of the worldwide peace architecture are all key decisions made by heads of state and governments as the 37th Assembly of the Union concludes.
The Africa that we all want, the Africa of peace, stability, human rights, good governance and sustainable development, an Africa that takes hold of its own destiny in a strong dynamic on the international scene is not only a choice amongst other choices, but it is an existential necessity. We don't have any other choice.
In Guinea, Sudan, Gabon, Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger, coup d'etats have resulted in unconstitutional change of governments. The African Union in return has banned these nations from any participation in its activities. The summit vowed to end the era of coups in Africa.
Unconstitutional changes of government have multiplied in total defiance of the entire political and legal order that had founded our organization. Never since the establishment of the African Union has such a number of transitions following unconstitutional change of government has been seen in Africa. Our failure to counter such a phenomenon is obvious.
This year's summit was themed Educate an African Fit for the 21st Century, building resilient education systems for increased access to inclusive, lifelong, quality and relevant learning in Africa. In its conclusion, the Assembly noted the critical need for the advancement of developmental activities in Africa.
We need to find solutions to our own problems and the multiple challenges our countries are facing, and this is through joint action through our organization and our union.
Unkept promises from the developed world of the provision of climate finance, an ever-growing debt burden, insurgency and unresolved conflicts are all challenges the African continent continues to face even over the coming years. The just concluded summit adopted a decision which advised member states to follow a holistic approach for a collective triumph in every sector. According to reports from the African Union Commission chairperson, over the past few years alone, over 90% of decisions made by leaders of the continent were not implemented entirely. According to analysts, this has resulted in the continuation of insecurity and hampered developmental activities, including trade and free movement of people among African states. Grumtara CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
And with that, UBC Lunchtime News has come to an end. Thank you so much for your company. Do enjoy the rest of the afternoon and UBC Television's programming. I'm Lorraine Masika Kazimoto. Good afternoon.
UBC Inspiring Uganda.
Uganda takes to the polls every 5 years, exercising their rights in electing leaders. There is a multi-party system. Executive power is exercised by the government. Legislative power is given to both the government and members of parliament. The system is based on a democratic parliamentary system with equal rights for all citizens over 18 years of age. This Wednesday, on your favorite program, Behind the Headlines, Timothy Nyangweso tasks politicians and political analysts on multi-party dispensation versus individual merit and which way for Uganda.
All on your public broadcaster, UBC Inspiring Uganda. This week on UBC.
I grew up rather protected and pampered by my siblings and daddy. Yes, my dad.
Daddy's girl.
But at the same time, I was a very serious girl.
Focused.
Focused, not this spoiled girl.
Yes.
I don't think I ever gave my parents a headache.
I'm sure that you will like this. Just sit back.
At the end of the term, they asked my father to come and officiate and give trophies. And I was one of those girls, because I worked hard, that was supposed to get the trophy. But also because I was very shy, when it came to my turn, instead of coming up the stage, I went and hid. I'm looking for me everywhere. Very embarrassed. My father is standing there with a trophy in his hand. His own daughter is not showing up. The teachers are
For you,
looking for
hidden.
me, and me, I'm hiding. I didn't know what was in my mind, so I really took a lot of teasing from that incident from the children. But that was me growing
They
up.
made fun
I
of
had
you
to work
everywhere.
Very hard. Yes.
So
I had to work really hard to get rid of my shyness, which I did eventually.
a fellow sister. And that's none other than Helen Bugari.
Not everyone can do everything.
But somebody can do something.
Yes.
Oh.
Meaning you can contribute. Whatever you contribute, in whatever way makes a difference.
UBC Inspiring Uganda.
My name is Damali Sali and I welcome you to this episode of the Ideation Corner. The Ideation Corner is a space where ideas are discussed and dissected. And today I host Vanessa Nakate. Vanessa is a climate justice activist and the author of The Bigger Picture. And she's going to tell us all about it. Vanessa, you're very welcome.
Thank you so much.
Right.
I'm very happy to be here and to also know that through this many people can get inspired to do something about the environment, and about the lives of the people. I remember in 2018, I started to do a lot of research about some of the challenges that the people in my country, Uganda, were facing. And when I realized that climate change was one of those challenges, I was actually surprised. We all know climate change in school to just be the changes in weather patterns over a long period of time, but we are not taught the reality of what's actually happening on the ground. So I started to read more about climate change to understand the causes, but also understand the impacts of this crisis. And as I read through the impacts, I realized that some of these things were already unfolding in Uganda. For example, the floods, the landslides, the droughts. So with the rising, global temperatures, there are these changes in weather patterns causing these climate disasters. And when I saw how much it threatens so many people, threatens Uganda as an economy, because we know that Uganda heavily depends on agriculture, for the survival of so many communities. And where the climate crisis is, it means, crops getting dried up in intense heat, or farms getting destroyed and washed away because of landslides or because of floods. So this was a challenge for so many people, because in the end, a lack of rain means starvation for so many people. And too much rainfall means destruction. And when you're in Kampala, sometimes, you don't think about what happens beyond your family or beyond your house. But when you start to look and you see how people's lives are impacted, for example, in places in Kasese, areas, around Mount Elgon, you realize how much climate change is actually real and affecting so many people. So in that time, I decided that I had to do something about it. I had to use my voice and my platforms to demand for climate justice and to also create awareness, because there is need for people, to know about this challenge. Because when people know, they always find something to do. Mm-hmm. If you know that you're in a burning house, you do everything you can to get out of that house. So that's why we believe creating awareness for the climate crisis is so important, because we need as many, climate activists as possible to rise up for the people and for the planet. So what I did personally, being inspired by Greta Thunberg from Sweden, who had started the climate strikes, I also started striking every Friday and sharing, most of my strikes on social media. I started to reach out to different communities I started to reach out to schools as well, to create this awareness about climate issues, but not only to create or communicate the crisis, but to also communicate the power in people's voices, the power in people's actions in transforming this world and making it a better place for all of us. So along the way, I have, got to work with different activists within Uganda to do different projects, different programs, and I think it's been 3 years now of activism. And like I said, last year, my book was launched, A Bigger Picture, and A Bigger Picture tells a story of me when I started my activism and why I started my activism. But it doesn't just talk about my story, but it also talks about stories of different activists in Uganda, different activists across the African continent, because I thought it was important, to have more voices, more stories, and more experiences included, in this book. Every activist has a story to tell, and every story has a solution to give, and every solution has a life to change. So it was very important for me to have, different voices, different activists, have their work mentioned and talked about in a bigger picture. And, in a bigger picture, I also talk about some intersections of climate change and the other issues, that affect people. For example, I remember months, when I had just started striking for climate, many people, would make comments like, why are you fighting for the climate? And yet, you could fight for poverty instead, to end poverty, because that's what's happening in many places. But then I started to educate myself about how, poverty intersects with climate change. And I got to understand that as, the climate disasters, as they destroy people's homes, as they destroy schools, as they destroy people's farms, people's sources of income, people are actually left in poverty, in extreme poverty. So I got to understand that the climate crisis actually creates poverty traps that are passed on to, generations in communities. And I realized that we can't have, climate justice without, poverty eradication. And we cannot have, poverty eradication without climate justice. The two go hand in hand. I started to explore more and learn more, about, things like zero hunger, and realizing if climate change is leaving millions of people with no access to food, that means that we can't achieve zero hunger without climate justice. We've seen, the recent Eastern African drought that left more than 26 million people with no access to food and no access to water. So in a bigger picture, I also talk about these connections of, the climate crisis and other issues.
Okay. I am so glad that in the bigger picture, you first of all, you're detailing your journey.
Yeah.
But then also you're giving a platform to the other climate activists who are in the space. And I also then remember also you tend to talk about there can be climate justice without racial justice. So in what context do you put that?
Yeah, that's again another intersection of climate change and, for example, racial injustice. Racial injustice and climate injustice can be talked about in a number of forms, and I'll just mention some of them. For example, we realize that, Black people or Black communities are the ones who are on the front lines of the climate crisis. Starting with the African continent itself, historically, Africa as a continent is responsible for less than 4% of global emissions. And yet many Africans are already suffering some of the most brutal impacts of the climate crisis. I've given you examples of what climate change has done in Uganda, examples of how, the Eastern Africa drought that left more than 26 million people dead, and sorry, not dead, hungry and failing to access, food and water. And then, there was a tropical storm Anna that landed in southern Africa just a few days back, and it has caused massive destruction, in areas of Madagascar, Malawi, Mozambique, leaving, over 80 people dead, thousands, losing their homes. Schools have also been destroyed, power lines have been buried, and people, have no access to electricity as well. And when you look at how the climate crisis has been affecting some of these regions, you realize that just in 2019, Cyclone Idai ripped apart large parts of the African continent, and it's still the same countries, Mozambique, Malawi, that were so impacted, and it left more than 1,300 people dead. So the climate crisis is, already destroying vast parts of the African continent. And that's an injustice, because in the end, we know that Africa is one of the least contributors of CO2 emissions. We've also seen Black communities, not just in Africa, but even in the United States, even in Europe, even in the UK, many Black residences are in places, that are exposed to air pollution, to water pollution. I can give the example of the Flint water crisis, that exposed so many Black children to unclean water. There's a story of a young girl in the UK whose death was recently connected to air pollution, a young Black girl. So these are some of the issues of race and climate, and also to bring it in the perspective of who is being listened to in some of these spaces. While Africa, while the African continent is on the front lines of the climate crisis, it is not on the front pages of the world's newspapers. And we've seen different activists from Africa struggle to have their voices listened to, their voices platformed and amplified, probably through interviews or through conferences. The previous, COP26, which just ended last year, I saw how some, activists couldn't make it to the COP because they couldn't access vaccination because of vaccine iniquities, because they couldn't access funding or accreditation to attend the conference. So in the end, how can we have climate justice if the most affected people are not in the climate conversations? So in the end, we can't have, climate justice without racial justice. The two go hand in hand and intersect with each other, because it's like one system, and if one part of the system is broken, eventually the whole system will come crashing down.
Okay, so you did mention Africa contributing less than 4% to